Hi, and welcome to Intelligence Part 2. There's a book out by Stephen Stein out of Toronto. He's a psychologist from Toronto, and it's called The EQ Edge that is really useful. It's got all kinds of information about how to improve each one of those 15 subscales of the EQI test. So you'd find this fascinating. He's got a lot of extra information in there. One of the things he put in was he had tested out Bill Vander Zalm, the former premier of BC, and Bill gave permission for him to publish the results. So you can see Bill's EQ results in there. Incidentally, I wouldn't do that if I were you. If you have your EQ taken, don't give anybody permission to publish anything, because if you're high on some and low on others, it can indicate things about you that you don't want everyone else to know about. So don't do that. But it's interesting the book is very interesting. Have a look at it if you have time to see that, and if you want to learn how to improve your own EQ. And again, your EQ is 4 times as likely to predict your success in life than your IQ. Having a high IQ is wonderful, but EQ really makes a huge difference. When you look at politicians in recent elections, for instance, those who have high EQ often do better than those who do not. So it's very, very interesting what happens with EQ. Daniel Goleman has written another book that's really interesting as well, called Social Intelligence, that goes into a lot of things here that you'd find very interesting. One of the things that industry tells us is that we're hired for our qualifications, we are promoted for our performance, and we're fired for our lack of interpersonal skills. So when we're working with helping people to develop skills for life, one of the things we got to do is help them with their EQ. And that will just make such a huge difference in their lives. Marian Diamond has done an awful lot of work on brain plasticity, and you've seen her videos. One of the things that she says is when you get older and you don't have a lot of new stimulation or challenge, what can happen is the frontal lobes can deteriorate. A lot of people sitting in nursing homes have no visitors, and they sit there watching Days of Our Lives or Jerry Springer School of Conflict Management every day, and there's no new challenges, no new stimulation that's going on. They don't meet new people, they don't get to do things, and so what happens is their immune system becomes compromised. So it really is an important thing that we make sure that throughout our lifetimes we have new stimulation and challenge. Marian says that you need new stimulation of variety, high challenge, low threat. You need to be doing new things all the time. And that goes on with everything. For instance, even in this course, there's a lot of new stimulation. There's a lot of new things that you can learn. And I hope you're finding yourself interested in a lot of these things. It's high challenge in the sense that there's a lot to learn, but it's low threat. You're all going to do well in the course. And I can guarantee that. Nobody's going to have any problems. It's just important for the brain to be able to function in that kind of an environment where there's new stimulation, high challenge, low threat. The brain learns really well in those situations. If there's high threat, not so much. There's a group of nuns living in Mankato, Minnesota, and these nuns are the world's largest group of brain donors. They were wondering why it was that these nuns were so darn bright well up into their 90s and their 100s. And so Dr. Snowden, a researcher from that university down in Minnesota, said, I think I want to study these people and see why they are so darn bright well up into their 90s and their 100s. So he convinced these nuns to donate their brains to science when they die. Of the first 100 brains that he dissected, 44 of those nuns had Alzheimer's, but only 4 of them had shown any symptoms while they were alive. So it was absolutely fascinating to them. And a lot of it is that these nuns continually learn throughout their lifetime. Many of them don't quit teaching. Most of them are school teachers, and so they're constantly learning because of that. And they don't quit teaching until they're in their 90s in many cases. So they're just really working hard at improving everything. Incidentally, aerobic exercise twice a week cuts the risk of dementia by 50%, and it cuts the risk of Alzheimer's by 60%. Alzheimer's is actually a genetic disease. You have genes for it in some cases. If you have the APOE4 gene, you're probably going to get Alzheimer's. If you got the APOE2 gene, you're probably never going to get Alzheimer's. If you got the APOE3 gene, you might get it depending upon your environment. So it's really important if you got the APOE4 gene that you get exercising and keeping yourself stimulated and everything else throughout your own entire life. And you can put off the onset of Alzheimer's by up to 15 years by keeping yourself really in good shape and by learning constantly. Incidentally, it turns out that concussions are related to the APOE4 gene as well. If you got the APOE4 gene, you should probably not be playing football or hockey, or boxing, any of those kinds of sports, because a blow to the head could trigger concussions much more easily with a person with that particular gene. If you got the APOE2 gene, you're probably protected from a lot of that. But it's really important to realize that some of those things are really a problem. Marion found 5 factors that are responsible for keeping the brain healthy and active for a lifetime, and she talks about these as being optimal diet, exercise, newness and challenge, strong immune system, and love and nurturing. Those 5 things she believes will keep your brain healthy and active for a lifetime. Now, the optimal diet, people have been eating fish and tribal chieftains and walnuts and everything else for thousands of years in an effort to improve their brain power. What you really need is a good balanced diet. You don't need a lot of supplements or anything else, just need a good balanced diet, and that will do it. Low in salt, low in sugar, and low in fat would help a lot. Again, I'm going to start tomorrow on that, but it's really important to have a good diet. And and exercise is also incredibly important. And I've been mentioning this throughout these tapes, that exercise just really is incredible for the brain. Now, Marion, when she was up to Vancouver a couple of years ago to give a talk at the New Westminster School Division, was invited by the assistant superintendent to come over and stay at her place after, she was concerned about Marion living in a hotel for while she was here. She wanted her to come over and stay at her place because Marion was in her 80s and she thought it would be much more comfortable to be in a home, so where she had people around and so on. So anyway, she stayed over at the assistant superintendent's house. While she was there, this friend of mine told me that she gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning, does an hour of Tai Chi, and then she has breakfast, which consists of yogurt and sardines. I'd rather be dead, but again, that's Marion, and that's what she does. And those particular things are tremendously helpful for the brain. Newness and challenge. Marion said, "Why do you think I come up to Vancouver? It makes my dendrites grow." And having a strong immune system is also tremendously helpful. Love and nurturing is one of those things which a lot of people just kind of put off as not really that necessary for the brain, but it is necessary for the brain. You've got to have a feeling that you're loved and that you are nurtured by people, no matter what age you are. And I'm going to talk about that in another tape in a minute here, because I have some more footage of those rats to just show you about how Marion came up with that particular one.